What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. I got a little quiet right there first. We're going to be talking about fishing shallow instead of summertime. Now, pretty much when I fish shallow, you see right over there if you don't know, I'll fish pretty much one bait. Jigs. I have a whole stinking jig box. It's like, because like, I fish a lot of lures, but I fish a jig literally 24 hours. No, I don't. I fish a jig 365 days out of the year. Or I can. Sometimes I don't. But you can. Because you can fish a jig 365 days a year. Alright? Some of the baits like, let's say for example, like a, let's see, like a topwater walking bait. Can you fish it 365 days out of the year? I mean, maybe you possibly could. Or would you catch a lot of fish? No. Winter time, you probably not catch any fish. Spring, when they're spawning up shallow, you probably won't catch any fish because they're there's a lot of grass up shallow, and the grass will most likely clog up your bait. So, but like you can't throw a crankbait 365 days a year. You can't throw it in the springtime when the bass are spawning. So yeah, I mean the jig, you can throw that. You can throw a jig whenever and wherever you want, pretty much. You can skip boat docks with it. You can punch grass with it. You can just flip wood with it. You can drag it on a rock. You can drag it offshore and brush piles, off points, humps, ledges. You can drag it in rivers, ponds, lakes. You can fish a jig whenever, and you can fish a jig in the summertime, and the springtime, in the fall, and even in the winter. Especially in the winter. It's really good in the winter. But right now, I'm just talking about shallow water jig fishing, okay? Now, when I fish shallow in the summertime, and I want to fish a jig, there's really a couple options I go to. If it's near or close to the full moon, or like if it's near the, like very close to the full moon, or it is like the full moon or new moon, I'm going to fish a swim jig up shallow. And the reason I fish a swim jig up shallow is because the bluegill spawn on the new moons and the full moons during in the summertime. So the bass are going to be an abundance of bluegill up shallow. So that means there's going to be a lot of active bass up shallow. Now there's always bass up shallow, but it just depends on if they're active or not. This is just a dirty jigs swim jig. This is the no jack, but you can, or I prefer, I mean, if you're fishing like thick weeds, like hydrilla, thick stuff, I mean thick stuff, you can get the no jack. But I just prefer the no jack because I fish for big fish because I live in Texas. But usually anywhere else, I'm just fishing the dirty jig swim jig, just a similar swim jig. And I like a pack of slim on the back, specifically in the sun perch color. And I just love bait field baits. I just love them. I mean, the pack of slim, it has a lot of kick to it, but it doesn't have as much kick as you would say, like probably like a regular crawl, like a rage crawl. It doesn't have much kick, much exaggeration as a rage crawl does. But a rage crawl is still a good bait, yeah, but there's a lot less kick. Oh, this one, the pack of slim has more flow than a kick. Like, it just kind of flows rather than going kicking like this. It just kind of flows. Because the rage crawl can flow, but it just kicks most of the time. But the pack of slim, it flows in the water. It's a little bit more finessey, but it's more pressure. More people throwing the jig. You probably want to throw that finessier color just because it's a little bit more finessey. But if it's not around a full moon, I will throw a pitching jig. Now this is just a dirty jigs tour level pitching jig right here in the black and blue color. I like black and blue a lot because in most East Texas lakes, it's a little bit dirtier, so I have a lot more black and blue jigs than I do natural color jigs. But I do have some natural color jigs, like right here. Here's like a natural purple jig color. And also, I like to mix match my trailers right here. I have the same sun perch trailer as I do now. And if you're wondering where the weed guard is, it fell out. I don't know why, but it just legit fell out of the head of the jig. I don't know why, but I like mix matching my jig trails. Because it's like a purpley green pumpkin jig color, and I'm mix matching that with a sun perch color. I don't know if it does it work. Yeah. Is it really good fishing? Yeah. So like, if it's just like, it's sunny, it's not cloudy, not in the new moon, I'm not throwing this. This is also in the bluegill color, straight bluegill. You could throw it in green pumpkin, Alabama crawl, pretty much color, but that's my favorite color right there. And I usually don't throw black and blues a whole lot unless the water's like super dirty in swim jigs, just because that's what I prefer. So, but let's get back to like for pitching jigs. I will usually just throw. I'll usually throw black and blue, but I also will throw a natural color if I need to. But I mean, that's pretty much the strap right there. And I always cut my. I always cuts my jig trailers. Like I will always snip them. Like here's one right here, real good and snipped. Even like my football jigs, like right here, it's good and snipped right there. This is one of my football jigs I drag around offshore and stuff. Like I always trim my skirts, no matter what type of jig I'm throwing. If I'm throwing a black and blue one, I'm throwing that. I'm always trimming my skirts. Now, if you look closely on my black and blue jigs, I'm throwing a different trailer. I'm throwing a Guggen Rattling Chunk in June bug color. Now, if you know anything about colors or June bug during the summertime, is that it really catches the bigger than average fish. And even most of the time, jigs catch the bigger than average fish too. So you're automatically fishing for like the bigger average fish than with fishing a jig. Now, that doesn't mean you can't catch small ones on the jig. I've caught plenty of small ones on the jig, but you just catch bigger than average fish when you're fishing a jig rather than like a Texas rig or something. Because because whenever a jig is sitting there on the bottom, and sits there on the bottom and just flares out, so it's a bigger profile rather than a Texas rig. It's just a profile. Because like a jig, because not only does the trailer give it action, but the skirt makes it puff out. So it's falling down, the skirt's going like this, then it hits the bottom, and it flares out like that. Like, it's pretty big. It went from going like this to going like that. So it looks like a bigger meal. And what I think really triggers the bass into eating is when the bass is swimming up to the jig, especially a big bass, the wake of water that it's making pushes against the jig skirt, and it just flows. So it's like this and just flowing. Makes it look alive and makes it look natural. And the bass will just come and they'll see it and they'll eat it and they'll grab it. So, yeah. You could catch a lot of big fish with a jig. Now, I've talked about my two types of jigs I use. I throw a swim jig, full moons or new moons, pitching jig, pretty much anywhere else. Where do I throw the jigs? First off, swim jig. I pretty much chuck it right shallow, and with the swim jig, I could still skip it under box and skip it under docks, not box, and skip and hop it around. But usually I just cast and do the Alabama shake or like light shakes. But usually I just throw it out there, Alabama shake it back, and that's how I get my big old bass to eat. And I'll also target shade with the jig, especially if it's a perfect scenario for the jig, for the swim jig. Cloudy, full moon. Those two right there. Ooh, buddy. You better watch out. Man. Like, I remember one time it was cloudy, and it was like close to the full moon. And then like the day before, it was like, so it's like, it was still like 2 days until the full moon, but I was fishing this, and then when it was cloudy, but then it was the day before that, it was sunny, and I was fishing the swim jig, and I only caught like 1 or 2 fish up shallow fishing the swim jig, and then I come back out and it's cloudy. Literally, I saw the swim jig up there, I get like 15 fish on the swim jig and like a stretch of bank. So like, yeah. Cloudy and full moon combo together can make you catch some big old bass. And then, yeah, I could throw a swim jig anywhere. I could throw it around wood, grass, rocks. Doesn't really matter where I throw a swim jig at all. But where I throw a pitching jig is I throw it usually around. I usually throw the pitching jig around docks most of the time, just because when the bass chill around docks, because usually the bass will not just hang out in the open water. They're usually gonna chill around docks and stuff, because like, if you were a bass, would you want to be out in the middle in the sun, or would you want to be under shade? So I'm skipping these puppies underneath docks. Now, a lot of fishermen don't skip docks because they physically can't. So if you learn to skip docks, you catch them fish that other people just don't. And then I skip them around docks. And another time, and what I found out is whenever I use this, the reason I use this with my black and blues and my darker colored jigs is because when the water is more dark, and this is the Pack-a-Slim. Not the Pack-a-Slim, the rattling chunk. It has a little bit of a rattle in it. I don't know if y'all could hear that, but there's a little bit of a rattle inside the bait, okay? And I feel that actually helps the bass see and find the lure. Because, like, if you don't have a rattle in it, you can probably still catch them. But I think the more obnoxious you are, the more... Because, like, if in dirty water, like, it's difficult for the bass to see. So, however much you make it easier for the bass to find your lure, the better. So, like, I use a rattle in that jig, and I use a darker color. And I mix match my colors. Now, is this a giant mix match? No. June bug and black and blue are two dark colors, but they pair together perfectly. And I literally hooked a 10-pounder. And another reason why I like skipping docks in dirtier water is because you can get closer to the dock without the bass scaring off. Because whenever I hooked that 10-pounder, I was literally like 10 feet away from it when I hooked into it. Or like 5 feet probably. It was like right under the boat when I hooked into that thing. So, yeah. Fishing the jigs under docks. And then, you make sure that you skip a spot 2 or 3 times. Because whenever you're in clear water, you can just skip it on there once and then go on. But whenever you're dirty water, you want to make sure you get it in the next year. Because the bass may notice it, but he won't ever see it in the first cast. Then he may look at it in the second cast and eat it. Or he may not even eat it on the second cast and make the third cast still eat it. I've probably caught more big fish on the second or third cast than the first cast. I have caught some big fish on the first cast, but usually I catch the smaller aggressive fish on the first cast, and in the second and third cast, I'll catch the bigger average fish. I don't know why. It's just how bass are, but yeah. And then another tip is to make sure you fish the double shade. So basically, what do I mean by that? So basically, a deepest, darkest shade, what I'm pretty much trying to say. So say the walkway out to the dock is producing some shade, and then the actual dock portion is producing some shade, and there's makes a little corner and the back side of the dock. Make sure you fish that corner. And then what you can also do is go up the dock from a different angle. So if everybody skips the right side, then nobody skips the left side. Or you can skip from the bank underneath. So you get your boat right under the bank, and then you can skip from underneath that way. And then what you can also do is make sure you fish the pontoons. Because if there's a pontoon tied up to the end of the dock, make sure you skip that too. Because that's kind of like a floating dock, kind of. So if the bass want to be on that, they can be on that. And a lot of times, I think, well, it's kind of stressed out. Because I think the biggest bass is either going to hang on the edge of the dock, so the very deepest part of the dock, or the most shallowest part of the dock. I feel the most fish congregate in the middle, but the biggest stay on the outside and the inside. Because like most of my big fish either come from like when I'm on the bank skipping underneath the dock that way, or when I'm out and there's like pitching alongside the dock. That's where I feel like my biggest fish come. And then also fishing docks where it has like contours in it. So like if a dock is on a steep like drop off or something, fish that dock really well. Or like if it's on like a hump or something, fish that dock really. Or like on a point, you bet your bottom booty you better fish that dock well. I've caught more big fish on a dock on a point than any other else dock. Now, if you're skipping docks in the fall, the drop offs are gonna be your key. And also, if you have a dock on a dam, fish that dock really well. It's like standing cover plus shade. Like the bass is like loving it. And then another tip for you for dirtier water fishing, using some spike it. Specifically, it's just the chartreuse garlic stuff. You just dip your claws in there of your lure, good to go. But just make sure you do not spill it on anything because, well, I spilled it on my phone case. Right there, on the corner right there. And yeah, it's pretty much on there for life. So, yeah. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a comment down below of any other tips you may like to hear, or any other tips that you might like to give me. And make sure you like and subscribe. And leave a comment down below of any big fish you caught in the jig, and any other fish or tips you may want to tell the fans of what other things you may want us to know about. Peace out. Catch a big one. Peace.